firstly, introducing both of us. My name is Matthew Gardner. I'm Managing Director for our legal business at Ambition, and I've also got Olivia Kelly with me, who is Associate Director for our F&A practice. So what are we going to share with you today? Basically, we're going to deliver the survey results from the diversity and inclusion survey that we ran back end of last year. So I'll start with giving you a bit of context behind why we did it in the first place back in 2020, what's the purpose behind it. And then we'll go into a bit more detail where I'll pass you on to Olivia to go through the data, just so you're clear on what you're looking at. And then we'll spend the bulk of the survey, bulk of the presentation rather, talking through the actual results and provide a bit of commentary around what we've seen at least. First slide. So as I mentioned, we actually ran this survey back in 2020. And what did we do at that point? This was really off the back of a lot of the noise that was provoked, really off the Black Lives Matter movement. And I guess what we saw was a lot of focus around the fee earner piece, lawyers, partners within law firms, and we just didn't feel that there was much of a focus or voice around the business services function. Obviously, that's an area that we're really passionate about. That's the area that we recruit into on a daily basis. And whilst we caveat everything that I'm going to share with you today that we're not sort of ED&I specialists, what we are is really passionate about the sector, these functions that we recruit into, and we're really firm believers that ED&I needs to be sewn into the fabric of the culture of these firms that we work with, and certainly in terms of the talent and attraction piece that again, obviously, we're heavily involved with. So essentially what we said was, what can we do at that point? And we thought, well, let's at least run our survey and give the people that we work with, our network, our candidates, a voice and shine a light on what is actually really happening in these business services functions in law firms. So that's what we did back in 2020. And then we shared those results with you and our clients back then. Fast forward, I guess 3 years, and that's gone by rather quickly. We thought, actually, it's felt like a lot's happened. It's felt like there's been a lot more focus around ED&I from firms, at least anecdotally. But we thought it might be beneficial for us to rerun the survey and compare the results of what we saw back in 2020 to now, and see, has there truly been a change in approach by firms or not? So yeah, we'll come on to that now. In terms of, just to clarify, in terms of the sort of survey group that we had, we collated data from 142 people. These are, just to be really clear, these are people that are working in law firms and either within the finance and accounting or business development and marketing departments. So these are the two areas that we recruit into as a business. We wanted to make the survey, the results very tailored to those markets, and again, give a voice to those teams that maybe don't have such a strong voice, particularly in partnerships or law firms. So that's our survey group. And actually, it was really nice to see a lot more respondents than the last time around, which maybe is an indication that people do feel more comfortable about talking about it, which is good to hear. So thank you to everyone that did complete the survey. And yeah, we're pleased to be able to share the results with you today. And I'm sure many of you that are on the call today did complete the results. So again, thank you. And I'm going to pass you on to Olivia now, just to give you a bit more specifics around the data and the data set, as I say, so you're clear on what you're looking at. And then I'll kick off talking about some of the results that we've seen.
So yes, as Matt said, what we've done is we've been able to collate the data and show you exactly who's actually completed this survey, so you can kind of see where this data's come from. So we wanted to get a bit of an idea from the respondents in terms of their level of seniority. As you can see here, 47% of these people were at management level, 28% non-management, and 25% head of or director level. So again, it just gives you a bit of an idea. Hopefully it does provide a good range in terms of levels of seniority that have completed it, whilst majority being on the more management side, again, being able to compare against yourselves potentially around who's completed this. We also wanted to get an idea in terms of gender identity. So 61% of the respondents were females compared to 37% males, and 2 other genders prefer not to say. So again, bear that in mind when we're going through the results. We also wanted to get an idea around how the respondents described their racial and ethnic identity. As you can see, the majority of people that did complete our survey were white, English, Irish Gypsy, or Irish Traveller, or any other whites, in terms of how they would identify their race and ethnic identity. Unfortunately, we didn't get as many respondents from other ethnic backgrounds. I think it kind of begs the question, is this representative of the identities we have within legal business services? Potentially. So again, that highlights that there's still a lot more that law firms need to be doing to, I guess, have a bit more of a diverse workforce. But again, you were useful to kind of know when we're going through the survey that that was the background identities of individuals that completed it. Then we wanted to get an idea in terms of age range as well. So again, pretty evenly split. So hopefully we've got a good data set for you to refer to.
Thanks, Olivia. The very first question, or how we sort of started the process, was really getting to the understanding of what was the process of actually applying to a position, and we could talk a bit more about actually your experiences while working at a law firm. So the first question was, do you feel that discrimination has ever played a part in why you were not selected for a position? Yes, whilst the majority of people said no, a large proportion of people said yes at 34%. If you compare that to 2020, that's increased by quite a large proportion actually. So 22% of people said yes back in 2020. So yeah, quite a large increase. Again, these are all anonymous respondents, so there's a number of reasons, or could be a number of reasons for that. Are people more willing to speak out now? Possibly. Is it because there has been more discrimination that's taken place in the last 3 years? Again, possibly. Is it because more people have completed the survey? Again, possibly. Either way, I think what it does represent is that there are still clearly some underlying issues with recruitment processes, and a large proportion of people are experiencing discrimination as part of those processes. So yeah, clearly a lot that needs to be done even from the outset in a hiring process for law firms in business services.
If I can just add in there as well, being kind of on the ground doing recruitment day to day and have been for the last 11 years, I think that one of the big contributory factors that we find that people may feel like they've been discriminated against is when our clients don't provide specific feedback as to why they haven't been successful throughout a recruitment process. What that does is it kind of leaves a bit of a grey area. We're having very proactive conversations with our clients around actually how important it is to provide specific feedback if people have taken the time to interview. Saying someone isn't the right fit doesn't give any constructive feedback as to why they haven't been selected. And as I say, leaves too much grey area of people to assume why they have not been selected for a position, which could contribute to this. So my advice for any of our hiring managers that maybe listen to this is how it's so important to provide specific feedback. And if you are a candidate on the other side, if you are getting the feedback that not just the right fit, you're well within your rights to push back and ask for something more specific.
Next question. So that was, when applying for a job advert, has the language or tone in the advert affected whether or not you would apply? So again, a very large proportion of you said yes, it would, so 41%. And again, that has increased by some margin since 2020. So I think if you're a hiring manager, if you're responsible in any capacity for advertising positions, then I think this is a real one, massive one to take note of, because just by the language you're using, just by the tonality, you are losing out potentially a large portion of talent. And we see it quite a lot with firms where they regurgitate job specs or adverts from, say, 10 years ago, and yeah, a lot of it isn't fit for purpose. At Ambition, actually, we've implemented a new bit of tech whereby we can now gender neutralize adverts, which has helped, I think. But I just think it's amazing to see how much notice is taken on adverts, because I think the presumption is that people don't really read them, but clearly they do, and it's making an impact, I think, to potentially who applies or who doesn't. Furthermore, I'll just encourage anybody that is job searching just to try and get a proper brief, but good understanding about what it's really like to work in law firms. Don't base everything that you see in an advert that frankly, can read very, very much the same, whether you're, whatever the law firm. So yeah, again, interesting stuff. And then we ask more specifically, can you provide an example of language that you would encourage you to apply? Obviously, this is in the context of an ED&I survey, so some of the responses could be because of that. But I think what we've seen ourselves is that candidates and job seekers alike are taking far much more interest in actually a firm's, policies around ED&I, the level of collaboration, the level of inclusiveness, the culture of a firm. So, candidates, job seekers expect to see that in adverts. And it's less about, you're working for a, international law firm or said law firm made loads of money last year. If you're a job seeker, these, some of the stuff that's on the screen now are the things that people really want to see. And it does, it does differentiate you from a lot of the rest of the market that may still rely on sort of the other sort of bells and whistles stuff. And this is the things that we're now seeing that really matters to candidates. So if you're working in a firm, if you're working in a team, if you've got people that are interviewing for you, then these are the kind of things that you need to be bringing out when you're articulating your firm or opportunity, and some of the things that I would be encouraging you to ask in an interview or to people like us as a recruiter.
I think more positively, what we've seen from our clients is they are taking more time and care over their job descriptions. They are including a lot more information around what their D&I policy is, a bit more around their firm and what they can offer in their culture, etc. But again, for anyone reading this, if you're putting job descriptions together, that stuff is really, really important. Also, as Matt said, providing as much information to your recruitment consultants and for people who are applying directly around bigger stuff around actually what it's like to work there, as opposed to your 10 lists of key criteria for the role, which, as we know, is always a bit of a wish list. That's the stuff that's really, really important. So don't take that part for granted if you are putting job specs together, and spend the time speaking to people, giving them a good understanding of actually what it's like to work in that organization, because that will make the difference of whether or not someone wants to apply or not.
And certainly we're encouraging again firms to even sort of share their benefits up front, which again it's very typical to only really see that, at offer stage, which, some of these benefits will be really important to job seekers. So yeah, I think some really easy wins that firms can implement.
We asked whether or not individuals were proactively researching a firm's diversity policy before applying for a position. So, as you can see, compared to when we ran this survey in 2020, the amount of respondents that said yes has increased quite significantly. So, it's gone from 17% to 40%, which is great to see. And I think reiterates the importance that individuals are putting on this aspect before applying for roles. So again, I think that if you are if you're hiring people and you're looking to attract talent, this stuff has to be front and center in terms of where you stand as a firm, what you value, what you're doing proactively around D&I. And I think the feedback that we have from a lot of people is that they don't want to see it just as lip service. They need to see that this is authentic to the firm, to actually get a proper feel for what it would be like if they were in that position and they working for you. So again, a lot of this stuff, I know a lot of our clients have done a lot of work around in terms of promoting what they do around D&I. But I think the ones that do really authentically, I think it's very obvious to see that. So again, my advice is to make sure that the stuff that you're putting out there around D&I, make it really true to you as a firm. And so that, if someone was to see that on your website and then they were to join you, they would feel that from you if that's what they're seeing from your website.
And then we've moved on to people's sort of experiences whilst actually working in law firms. So we asked the question, have you experienced any discrimination in the workplace whilst working for a law firm? So very similar results actually to 2020, which was interesting. So 39% of people said yes, which maybe it's not surprising, but still it's a shocking number, I feel. Reflecting on sort of comparisons with 2020, I think just reconfirms for me that this is probably just quite an accurate percentage, given that we've had more respondents than we did last time, given we're 3 years on. This is probably, a reality of actually what's really happening. Again, could it be people that are more willing to speak out? Doesn't necessarily indicate an increase in the last three years or decrease. I don't think so necessarily, but I think what it does highlight, there is still an issue, within business services teams in law firms. We then went on to ask more specifically if you felt comfortable doing so, whether you could detail sort of the level or the basis that you felt you were discriminated against. And again, whilst some of this maybe isn't surprising, unfortunately, I think it's always a lot harder hitting when you actually see it written down, and particularly for us when we know this is from our network that we sort of speak with on a sort of daily basis, to actually hear some of this stuff and see it written down, I think is, again, just really hard hitting. So for that reason, we wanted to share it with you. We didn't want to sort of sugarcoat it or over corporatize sort of the responses. We kind of wanted to keep the responses as raw as possible to again sort of hammer home, particularly when we presented this to our clients as well, that this is just the reality of some of the experience that people are facing in law firms. So again, I'll sort of let you read that yourselves, but there's a lot around sort of ageism, sexism. There's definitely some references to sort of the sort of partner culture there. So yeah, clearly a lot to be done. Stuff around IVF treatment. There's a bit around that I noticed as well around flexibility and people leaving the office early, and sort of maybe what back in the day, if you like, people may consider as banter, but just really isn't appropriate. And people are sort of making jokes of people maybe slacking because they're leaving the office early, and this whole sort of presenteeism piece. I think there's some real, again, some basics, the way we have to sort of look at ourselves and say, what are we potentially saying or doing that may actually affect people in the workplace? And it doesn't always have to be direct discrimination, but yeah, again, these findings I thought were interesting and quite hard hitting from my perspective. I think coming on to sort of how individuals sort of dealt with discrimination, and also how firms dealt with it. So a large percentage of people said that they didn't actually report the discrimination, so 69%. What is potentially pleasing is that that has come down from 2020, so it was 77%. So that's good. Again, is that an indication that firms have improved that process? Made it more accessible, if you like, for people to report things. Made it more comfortable for people to report discrimination. But potentially, I think all those things, but it's not decreased that much. So clearly, there's still a problem there where people just aren't talking about it, which if we don't talk about it, then it's some of this stuff just isn't going to get resolved. And obviously there's a large percentage of people that said prefer not to say. So again, I'm making assumptions here, but you'd have to say that potentially that wasn't reported either. And then coming on to sort of where, I guess the question around, if you did report, were you happy with how it was handled? So small percentage of people are reporting it, and then unfortunately, most people, nearly all people, are then not happy with the outcome. For me, the issue with that then is that you get into this vicious cycle of really small percentage of people reporting in the first place, that percentage of people then not being happy with it, and then where does it leave us? I think we're just going to end up with even less people reporting it, and I think nothing being resolved or solved, frankly. So again, we've been, Livy and I have been reporting this back to a number of our clients, and we spent quite a bit of time on this particular piece, because I think clearly there's a real breakdown in process or communication with how this is being handled, and maybe it's a training thing with line managers, hiring managers. It's hard to say, but yeah, that whole process there is clearly not right. So yeah, lots lots to be done around that, I think, moving forwards.
So we asked in the survey, do you feel that D&I is an important issue to your firm and that they're taking necessary steps to create a diverse and inclusive workplace? So the results show here, unfortunately, a slight decrease from 2020 of those that felt, yes, my firm is taking all the steps it can. And unfortunately, a bit of an increase in those that have said no, there are policies in place but are not actioned, and no, it's not an important issue to my firm. Um, so whilst it doesn't make for great reading, unfortunately, I think what I take away from this is that individuals, and rightly so, have a much higher expectation of their firm around this stuff. And as I say, so they should. And I think this just reiterates how important it is for a firm to take this stuff seriously. As I say, this can't be lip service that they're giving their staff and to attract talent. This needs to be implemented and embedded in firm, and they live and breathe it, because it's clearly very important to people. And there's clearly, from an internal perspective, work to be done by our law firms around how they, I guess, get this across on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, still work to be done. And it is still a very, very important factor for people, whether or not they're considering a new employer, and also of their current employee. But yeah, still work to be done. We also asked individuals, when looking and interviewing at a future employer, what do you look for and value most? So this was a free text box, so anyone could include whatever they wanted to. And what we've done is highlight the things that people mentioned that came up more often. And the things in larger font were things that came up more often. So as you can see, culture and flexibility came up quite frequently in terms of things that people look for and value most. Um, Again, I think this goes back to earlier on slides where it's so important that you are giving this level of detail even at job advert stage, and you have to be very vocal around what it would be like to work at a firm and about how you value your staff, etc., throughout the whole process, and then kind of once you're there internally as well, because this stuff is very key. um, we talk about flexibility as well, and I think the one thing to probably highlight a little bit more on this is when we say flexibility, and what I take from flexibility now, it's not just about how many days you work in the office versus how many days you work from home. Flexibility means, is an employer flexible for me as an employee to work the hours that suit me? I may be a carer for someone, or I may be a parent, I may be a single parent, I may have other things that I do outside of work that I'm really passionate about, that I want to prioritize. So how flexible is my firm, or a potential new firm, going to be to allow me to live a life that I feel fulfilled in, and take care of other responsibilities outside of work? So again, this stuff is really important to be talking about. It's, what is your stance around flexibility, but ultimately prioritizing your staff. Um, Again, culture, I think that a lot of firms are now in the office more. So I think that helps in terms of a culture. But again, this is something that we need to be talking more about, and putting more emphasis on the importance of. Also mentions diversity in the workforce, which is part of why we wanted to do this survey, and we'll continue doing work around ED&I to do what we can as recruitment suppliers within the legal sector to better educate clients and provide a more diverse workforce for our clients when they are recruiting. Um, Honesty is mentioned in here, open communication, supportive and collaborative work environment. Um, the salary stuff didn't actually come up very often. It was a free text box, so people could write whatever they wanted in here. And again, that wasn't something that came up as frequently, because I think it really is about what people value most, and yeah, what they see as a real important, like seeing a firm that has the same values as what they do. Salary is obviously important, but of course, for this stuff, we want it to be around actually what it's like to work in a firm. So these were some of the things that were highlighted, which we thought made make for interesting reading. And that's the end of the presentation. So thank you all for attending. We hope you're able to take something away from the results that we have. And yeah, I guess over to Matt and open the floor to any other questions.
If there's any questions, please fire away now. As Olivia said, hopefully, you know, what this has done is maybe reinforce some of the feelings that you've maybe experienced yourself, and yeah, certainly we'd welcome some feedback and suggestions for further surveys and information that you think would be valuable for us gathering. On top of us sort of presenting this to you today, I think as I mentioned, we have been out there speaking to our law firm clients and trying to provoke, you know, at least some discussion and hopefully a bit of action around some of these points, which hopefully will in turn filter down to you as employees within law firms. So I think, you know, there has been some changes, but as per the results, I feel like there's still a lot to be a lot to be done, particularly around sort of business services. So we'll keep doing these surveys. We'll run another one, I'm sure, sort of second half of this year. We'll also be running other sort of trend reports and surveys, but yeah, in terms of ED&I, anything related to that, then do reach out to Olivia and I. We'll make sure you get this recording, and then we'll take any feedback on that you might have for future. We do have a question that I'll that maybe Olivia and I will have a go at sort of answering. So the question is from somebody. What do you think is the reason people are not coming forward when they're discriminated against? Do you want to give that a go, Olivia? And I'll put my 2 pence worth
Well,
in.
I guess going off of this survey, I can only assume that there maybe aren't the processes internally or the platforms for people to feel like they can. I think that what unfortunately this survey highlights is that there's a lot of work to be done around the process after someone were to report a discrimination. So I can only assume it's that they maybe don't feel safe to, or that they don't feel like it would be handled appropriately. That's what I've taken away from the survey, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would echo that. I just don't think people feel like they're safe to do so, meaning that, you know, it'll be managed in the right way. They'll be seen in the right light. You know, I still feel like, you know, maybe people be viewed as they're the problem. It's an issue that management needs to deal with. But yeah, essentially, it's that safety process piece, I think, which is clearly wrong.
We've presented this survey, as Matt said, to quite a lot of our clients, and we have had quite a bit of, because I think when our clients have read this, they've been quite shocked themselves to see these kind of results. And we have had clients sort of give us real good detailed information around what they do as a firm to give people a safe platform to be able to, I guess, disclose if they do feel like they have been discriminated against. A lot of our clients have now implemented a buddy scheme where they have someone that is but I think it's more so initially when they first join, that they are given someone that they can kind of buddy up to, that is hopefully still there throughout that period that they're working there. But obviously people do move on, etc. But I do think there's steps being taken in the right direction to give that people that level of support internally. But yeah, I think a lot more still needs to be done around that.
Definitely, 100%. We've also had another sort of question coming from somebody. So, and that's specifically around sort of the MMBD function. So, the question is, MMBD or marketing and BD is heavily full with white women, so the bias is more about or more towards intersectionality than gender bias. How do you think we tackle this sensitive issue? Good question. It's a difficult one. So again, I'll caveat all of this today with we're not ED&I experts. You know, we don't run programs ourselves. I mean, you know, again, my 2 pence worth is it. You know, I think people need to feel more brave. I think to build cohort, build buddy schemes, and really get someone senior within your firms to really champion some of these initiatives. I think that's really important. So is there somebody senior within your firm, someone in the C-suite, someone on the management board that you can have a proper conversation around this, and you know that whatever you then do, you're going to get the full support of this. But I do think it starts and finishes with the managing partners, the management boards. If they're not really singing from the same hymn sheet, if they're not really leading from the front on this stuff, it makes it so everything else from that much more difficult. I think that's key.
I think what we have started to see as well is that a lot of our law firm clients have now recruited very senior individuals internally that are ED&I specialists. So there should be some level of support internally within that team and HR teams where they've got their specialists within this that should be able to provide anyone with a platform and a safe space to be able to go to if you feel like you may be discriminated against because you don't fit within that bracket. So I think it's, if I was going to give advice for someone that maybe felt like they wanted to speak to someone, they would be the sorts of people I would seek out initially. Um, I don't recruit into the marketing and BD space. I recruit into the finance space. And one thing that I feel quite passionate about is trying to bring new talent into the legal sector, from outside of legal and maybe from wider professional services, because I think that if we start to do that more, I think we'll naturally see a more diverse workforce, and maybe change some patterns that the legal sector have, I guess, probably just followed for years and years, because unless you've worked in a law firm before, how could you possibly ever be able to work in a law firm? And we just don't agree with that. So I do think that that's something that I'm really pushing on the finance side of things, because I hope that that would then make a positive impact around a more diverse workforce. So then hopefully we don't have those situations where you've got teams that are predominantly one sort of profile of individual.
Definitely. I think this would be a really good question potentially to ask in a future survey. And we are thinking about doing other sort of round tables, and it would be nice to, this is a collective responsibility for all of us, I think, to sort of drive real change. So I think hopefully all of us together will have some good answers to some of these questions. But yeah, good question. Yeah, that sort of concludes today's discussion. As I said, we'll make sure you get this recording, and really, yeah, if any one of you want another conversation about this, or a brainstorm, or to knock heads, then yeah, both Olivia and I are really passionate about having a chat about it. So even separate to this, give us a call, reach out, share some thoughts, ideas. We're very happy to do the same. And yeah, hopefully we can continue to sort of encourage to drive change within certainly the business services space, and hopefully further afield. But yeah, thank you all for your time today. Appreciate the contribution to the survey in the meantime. It really makes a difference. The more responses that we get, then the better the results and the data, and the more change that we can affect. So yeah, really appreciated. And as I say, I hope you found it sort of insightful, useful, and yeah, hopefully it might provoke some discussions within your teams and your firms. But yeah, good to see you all, and take care, and see you all soon, hopefully.